Hi everybody, my name is Carrie. I run Traveling Pony Studios and welcome back to another video. If you hear some noises in the background, my dog is currently upstairs with me and he is chewing his foot. So I apologize about that. Maybe he'll decide to leave. I don't know. I just recently had my last market before I take my really long break, and I wanted to come on here and basically give you guys a market recap. As you guys know, I used to go through and read all of my market orders, but honestly, when I was doing farmers market, I was totally okay doing that because I would typically only sell between like 10 to 15 items. But now, as I do a lot more larger markets and everything, it's just way too much to read through all of the orders, and especially if there are multiple items, that would be like whoa, way too much. So basically what I do now in my market recaps is we talk a little bit about market, anything that's like super notable, and let me tell you guys, there are some notable things that did happen at this market. So some brief overview on this market. I actually have done this market before, and I did it last year. It was technically, I guess you would consider it the best market I had last year, but honestly, you could say that was because of the fact that it was a 2-day event. When you broke it down by the single day numbers weren't necessarily anything groundbreaking for me. It was just like at the end of the day, that was the only 2-day event I had ever done, and that's kind of how I got this like larger sum of money, was just the fact that it was 2 days. If it had been a single day and if I had only had the Saturday, it would have been kind of a standard market for me. So like I said, I did do this market last year. It is the one market that I traveled the furthest away for. Basically, for me, it's about an hour drive with traffic. If I can leave and there's not a ton of traffic, it is way better. It's typically like 30 to 40 minutes without traffic, but definitely like when I went on Friday, it was like an hour. Sorry guys, if the angle changed, I had to cut some like footage off my camera. But basically what I think was saying, it is not the closest market that I do. It is about basically an hour, and it is a 2-day market. So typically most of my markets that I do are single days because, as you guys know, this is not the only thing I do. Technically now it is literally the third thing I do because now I'm running 3 businesses, which is, I honestly never thought that at 24 I would be running and owning 3 businesses. But here we are. We're making 2. I typically do single days. It is way easier for me with having the horses and the farm, and it's a lot easier to find somebody to do 1 day at the barn. It's a lot cheaper to have only help for 1 day with having to pay somebody to come in and help with the horses. And honestly, I feel like by Sundays, I'm pretty tired, but like it's not like tired in the regards that, I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes like if Saturday doesn't go well, then typically like on a normal day, well, who cares? I just go back to like my normal thing and it doesn't bother me. But if Saturday doesn't go well and I have to show up on a Sunday, oh girl, there's no winning with me. I typically don't do 2-day events. With that being said, technically I have applied to 2-day events this year, but I honestly have not heard anything, so I'm assuming I have not gotten into those events. I do love my single day events, and I do love my single day events that are close to my house. I will not deny that. This event was in Woodstock, Georgia. It's in this kind of like green area space, so it is also the only market that I do that is not on concrete. Typically all the markets I do are in like parking lots or they're on streets typically. This one is in a green space, and that's always kind of like sketchy a little bit because while it is in a green space, I technically did get the sidewalk area, so I was on concrete, but I'm not 100% certain if that was like tremendously better given the circumstances. So let me give you guys some backstory. This market was supposed to be Mother's Day weekend, and for whatever reason, this year in Georgia has been raining so much. Typically our dry months are like May, June, July, August. Like I kid you not, last year from like May to August, it rained like 10 times and we had horrible droughts, but it just hardly ever rained. out versus I think May this year, they said we had rain like 20 days out of like 31 days. And funnily enough, it is not May now, it's June 7th when I'm recording this. But like literally I am waiting because on my phone I have like a severe thunderstorm watch or whatever coming my way. Like, look at that. And this has become a daily occurrence. It's honestly crazy how much rain we have had in Georgia. I never had this problem last year. I never had to do a market where it rained. Mother's Day was supposed to be dreadful. And if you follow my Instagram, you would have seen me because I was freaking out. Not only was it supposed to rain Saturday and Sunday, and it wasn't supposed to rain a little, it was supposed to rain a ton. It was supposed to be super windy. We're talking 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. It was supposed to be super cold. We literally went from... I'm not even kidding. Severe thunderstorm watch, my friends. But we literally went from being like in the 90s to literally like that. It was like 50s and 40s, and it was super windy and cold and raining. So it was gonna be absolutely dreadful. So approaching that time, I was actually gonna drop out of the market because I was like, you know, it just doesn't make sense. I don't really want to go to a market if it's gonna be rainy and windy. Personally, I wouldn't even want to go outside if it was gonna be like that. And I didn't want to risk my plushies being ruined. I spend so much time on my plushies and I only have so much time in a day, and it's really not worth it to me. Like, the entry fee wasn't anything crazy, so I would have been more than happy to have taken that loss. But they did end up canceling it and rescheduling it on the Friday before the market to Memorial Day weekend. We'll talk about that and see if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. In terms of some of the other information, a 10 by 10 space was $125, and that is technically the cheapest space that I have had. I typically spend about $150 to $250 for a single day event for a 10 by 10 space. It's $150, I believe, actually, for a 10 by 10 for 2 days on the green. They had two options where you could get the more expensive one in like the prime area, or you spent like $25 less for a cheaper one. So I just went with the prime area because there was no way you were gonna catch me in an area with even more kids. If you guys don't know, I always find it so funny. Like, everyone thinks that since I crochet and everything, I must absolutely love kids, but I'm not a huge kids person, and I think that's just because of the fact that I did summer camp and I taught summer camp for so many years around horses. Yeah, no, I mean, personally, even myself, I don't want any children. So I was like, I am not gonna be spending time near these kids in this painting area with my plushies. That sounds dreadful. So it was $150. I want to say the biggest thing, I have done a lot of events, and I've done higher end events in my area, juried events. I've only been to one event where I was the only crocheter, and that is totally fine. Crochet has become so popular, you're gonna go to an event, there's gonna be like other crocheters. It's just life. I've accepted it. I have found that like my crochet style, the yarn I use, most people don't even use it. Most of the markets that I go to, everyone's using Burnett or Premier Basics. I'm one of the few that uses like Premier and Hobby and Sweet Snuggles Light, and then now in the future going to be my own yarn. I don't have anything similar to other people, and the patterns that I use are not the same. And the eyes, like, I'm very separated, I feel like, from some of the people that I see normally at markets, especially mainly because of just the yarn preference. Like, we use just two different textures of yarn. I have just come to terms that there's always going to be, typically most of the markets, 3 or 4 other crocheters. But with that being said, usually the markets where there's like 3 or 4 others, there's also typically between like 100 to 150 different vendors. Not always, I will say. I have been put many of times right next to other crocheters. I'm fine with it. I try and have fun and talk to them. Typically, they don't feel that same happiness being right next to another crocheter, but I've just learned to go with the flow. It's life, you know, what can you do? With that being said, I remember this event last year, there was a ton of crocheters, and I think there was like 6 other crocheters, 5 other crocheters, and they had just under 100 vendors. Because I very distinctly remember the person across from me was a crocheter, the person behind me was a crocheter, and then there was like 2 or 3 other people in that same block that were all crocheters. This year, imagine my face. I think there was 96 or 97 other vendors, and this was supposed to be a juried event. Imagine my face when there's like, I think there was 9 or 10 other crocheters besides me originally supposed to sign up. And essentially that's like almost 1/9, like that's a very good percent of people that crochet. Like 9 or 10 out of like 97. That's, especially this is not a big area. Like it is essentially 5 lines, like 5 rows of tents. Like that is way too many crocheters, way too many. That also put me off. I was like, the weather, I was kind of getting done with it. But I was like, you know what, I'm gonna see what happens. So they did end up changing it to Memorial Day weekend. The numbers did drop. I think it went from being like 90 something to like the low 60s. And I believe from what I remember, there was still 5 other people who had crochet stuff. I think it was 6 of us in total, which was still, I was like, that doesn't really make it, like, it didn't really change anything. It was like 6 people out of like 60 something, like, so I'm not a big fan of that. I can definitely say that I don't think I will be attending this market anymore. I feel like once is like, oh, twice, you're like, this is a reoccurring theme. I have realized. That was one of the things that kind of like, I guess like ticked me off a little bit going into it. It's just like, I don't really think it's fair to have a juried event and like say it's juried and then you have like all these others. There was also problems before. I know there was like a ton of pottery people. Even my neighbors did pottery and they were like, we've never had this many other pottery people, and literally being put right next to them. It wasn't just us, but it was just weird. Like, not, I guess you could say juried, but I don't consider that juried. Like when I think of jury, it's like you have all these people and then typically you bring it down to like 3 or 4, not 9. I don't know about that. But to actually talk about the market, Friday I went over and I set up my stuff, and let me tell you guys, I was stressed out the wazoo. So Sloan had been doing okay, and then that Friday night before the market when I was supposed to go and set up, Sloan went crippled, dead lame. Couldn't stand up, couldn't walk, couldn't anything. He is the type of horse that when he's in pain, his go-to is to lash out at everybody. Like, kind of like he's in like protection mode, and he doesn't mean to be mean, but he definitely explodes and lashes out. We were having problems with that. Like, you could tell he was in pain. He didn't want to put any weight on his leg. He just wanted to lay down, but then when he would get up, he would get so like all over the place that then he would like lunge at the other horses. He would lunge at people walking by a stall. He would attack the walls. He would kick them. I was so stressed out on Friday. I went back and forth so many times, like, am I even gonna like go to the market? Am I gonna go Friday? Very luckily my farrier did agree. I like begged him because he was not available, but he found time late that night to run by and basically fix some of the problems or help alleviate some of the pain, to hold him over for a couple of days because he was just in so much pain. We didn't really know what was wrong, and it literally happened within like a day. Like, I had ridden him the day before and he was fine, and then that day, whoa, it was bad. My farrier came out, but I did go Friday to set up, and he came out afterwards, so I was able to like meet him out of my barn at like 7:30 or 8 or something, and he was able to do Sloan and everything. Saturday the market was 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., which this is the longest day that I typically do for a market. We got super lucky that it was supposed to rain, but the rain held off. Saturday it did rain a little bit, but I was able to put my side tents up and it wasn't bad. It lasted for like 15 minutes. We got so lucky because you could tell the sky was like pitch dark. And then Sunday it was 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So a little bit shorter times. It was supposed to rain. It held off, so we got super lucky. On Saturday night it poured. So I was on concrete and a sidewalk, and you would technically think that would be really good. But the problem was when it rained on Saturday, all of the Georgia red clay ran down the side and was in the tent. So the concrete and everything had Georgia red clay and water everywhere. So we had to sweep it. It was a huge thing. There was just a lot of things at this market that just like I did not like, or it just didn't go well, and so it put me in a bad mood. To talk about, I think one of the best things. I was able to sell some of my really cool plushies. I sold my Taurus right away. It was one of the first things that sold. I sold Umbreon. I sold basically all of my fuzzy guys. I had this huge order get picked up. That was my koi fish. She got the fuzzy raccoon, and then it was a little hippo, platypus, Light Fury, and Night Fury. So I had that huge order, and I think the absolutely coolest thing ever is I met my first subscriber in person. So I just want to say a huge thank you to the person who came out, and that would be Britt. I literally have never met a person before in real life who watches my videos besides like my family and everything, you know, that's kind of like, okay, but I'm still always in awe to think that people actually watch my videos, and I could actually tell that they really did watch them because some of the things they mentioned, I was like, okay, you would have had to watch my videos to know that like I'm particular about like, you know, the editing and the sound of my breath and like all that type of stuff. So it was so amazing to be able to meet someone in person that watches my videos. Like that literally cheered up my day, and that's one of the biggest, I think, takeaways that I can take from this market, and I will always remember from this market. Like no matter what happened, I was so excited. My mom of course was with me and everything, and she was so surprised, and it was just like the best thing ever. So I want to say a huge thank you for coming up and saying hi to me. You really did brighten up my whole weekend. So that was like all of the good things that happened. One of the bad things I think was because of the fact that they had changed it from Mother's Day to Memorial Day. Our schools let out right before Memorial Day weekend. The traffic was quite lackluster. I think Sunday I only sold like 15 items, which for me is not great, especially considering that I was there from 11 to 5 and I only sold 15 things. Was kind of crazy if I'm being honest. I think like I had like $200 on card, which is, I mean, I literally made more than that at a private event where I was there for 3 hours. So that was kind of, so the traffic was quite, it was probably one of the slowest markets I have done. And I think because of the fact that it was Memorial Day and this is kind of located near a lot of restaurants, a lot of people like hadn't intentionally gone to the market to go to the market. They had probably left some of the restaurants and were just like, oh, there's like this market, let's stop there and see, you know, what's going on or whatever. So you had a lot of people who are just like window shoppers, which is totally fine. I always wish people would realize that if you are not actually interested in a plushie or you're gonna buy a plushie, don't touch the plushie. Like, this is not just for kids. I have this problem with adults all of the time. Like, you can tell they're not interested in buying. They don't want to buy. They want to put all of their hands all over your plushies. It makes me so mad considering the fact that the last 2 markets I have had plushies get damaged from people touching them and picking them up or throwing them on the ground or spilling things on them. It makes me so livid because then they're like, well, I don't understand what the problem is. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. Like, that took me hours to make and you just come in, walk into my booth for like a minute, want to put your grimy little hands all over things, and then you just want to leave. Like, you don't even want to buy it. Like, why touch it? Oh, it drives me crazy. So on Saturday, I had a lot of instances of people touching plushies, people getting their grimy little fingers on them because there was a cotton candy vendor and there was a popsicle vendor right by me, and as well dropping them on the ground, which, as you guys had heard, we had been having tons of rain. So as I said, the problem on Saturday was the same problem earlier on Saturday before it rained, where there was a lot of Georgia red clay, and I had a lot of plushies that got dropped in the Georgia red clay that were white. It made me crazy. So by the end, especially Sunday, I was not having it. When people walked into the tent, I was just like straight off, like no touching, look with your eye, especially if they were kids, because like these kids were just being like left unsupervised by their parents to go run around. There was a park right behind us. Like there was a gate and there was a park, and there were kids from the park trying to reach their hands through the gate and grab plushies. And then they had like birthday parties and they were blowing like balloons all over. Oh my gosh. I was I was fed up with it. I don't know what these kids were on. I don't know if it was because they just got out of school, but my goodness, I feel like this is one of the markets where I had like the most disrespectful kids around me, grabbing items, throwing them on the ground, just like touching everything. And the parents were just like completely oblivious, did not care whatsoever. They weren't just doing it to my booth, they were doing it to like every booth. And I was so done with it. I don't know if it's the fact that there were so many restaurants and like so many people were like drinking and stuff because the breweries were not near us and they just like didn't care and just wanted their kids to go run. But I was done. I am not doing that again. That is one of the reasons why I have no interest in coming back to doing any markets in this like area, because yeah, I feel like this is going to be a common theme and I want nothing to do with it. That was one of the not so great things, but I guess I'll tell you guys, I think the big things for me were the fact that there were so many crocheters, even though yes, technically did the crocheters drop, but like technically not, because the numbers overall dropped, so it didn't really make that big of a difference. And then the location between the drive, the hassle of me getting out there, and then of course that happened. I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I know I liked it last year, but I didn't like it this year, and I don't think I'm gonna be going back. I'm trying to next year probably just do markets that are super close to me or just like really, really big markets. But this definitely, I feel like, is one that I will no longer be attending for multiple reasons. With that being said, I ended up making just about over 2,000. And I know what you're saying. You're like, Carri, that's like so much. And yes, it is a great number. I still did super good because there were a lot of vendors there that did not sell anything for the whole weekend. That part was great. But if you look down on the expenses, a much further drive. So because it was so far away, I had to factor in more things like gas. We had to order food and do more things like that because it wasn't close to us. So by the time we were getting home and doing the barn and the horses and the dogs, it was like 8 or 9 p.m. Like neither of us wanted to cook. So we were picking up more food, and then also having the 2 days, we had to get extra help with the barn. So we ended up having to pay for 2 days. So that alone is like, I don't know, a little bit over $500. And then by the time you take out all of the expenses and then you divide the money left over by the hours, it does not make sense to me. I'm definitely getting a lot better with being able to be like, hey, like if I go to market, it's gotta make sense to me by the hourly as well, because when you broke it down, I was like, I'm good. But that all being said, like I said, there were still some really great things. I sold a lot of really cool plushies. Like I sold a Jester Dragon, my Taurus, Umbreon, just like all types. Oh, I sold Flareon too. Like I just sold a lot of cool things on one day. I also got to meet a subscriber, but it's amazing how some of those negative things just leave a bad taste in your mouth, and it is what it is. So basically I am now done with markets until September. Middle of September. But as you guys know, next month in July, Knotty Pony will officially be released. So basically my plan until then is I have a lot of customs, I have a lot of orders, I have tester calls, and then from there, Knotty Pony will be my main focus heading into July. Getting the ship in here, getting everything set up in my office, getting things set up in the warehouse, getting the promotion ready, website, so you guys can now get your hands on Knotty Pony next month. But besides that, my next market will be in September, but my website will always be open. I have my safety eyes on there, my plushies, and pretty much all of the money I make from my plushies and safety eyes, if it's not going to Sloan, it's going to pay off a lot of things for Knotty Pony, because wow, that's a lot. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!